This episode of Jackie's Groove is brought to you by Jambox. Jambox is a hands-free, breath-powered MIDI instrument that brings the joy of music creation to all ages and all abilities. Visit jambox.com, JAMBOXX.com.
The music, the whole resurgence of rock music. Because now country rock's a big thing. But if you really dissect what's going on with that country rock, it's southern rock. It's Skinner. It's all these bands that we've already heard. So yeah, without all that music from the past, especially the 70s, I really feel the 70s really forged rock music. You had to be a really good musician to be successful in the 70s and a really good songwriter.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Hey, this is Jackie Bertoni, brought to you by Intertalk Media. Connect all things music. Hey, man, happy hump day. June 13th. Lucky 13th, Wednesday. Hey, man, last week we had country. It was a day of country with Goodbye Texas, Good Night Texas, and also with Shannon Ray. Today we're going to flip the script and we're going to go rock and roll, as you just heard the intro music to my in-studio guest, Mr. Jim Crean. Jim has got an amazing background. You've got a lot of mutual friends in common, and especially his good buddy, Carmine. I call him Carmine Appice and Vinny Appice. I've known their mom since 1979. We'll talk more about that, which is funny and it's hysterical. We're going to talk about Jim's current release, Insatiable, on Rocker Records LLC. And so we're going to get deep into it. We're going to get into a rock and roll vein. So with that said, I want everybody to welcome with open arms and open ears to Jackie's Groove, Mr. Jim Crean. Jim, welcome, my brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm good, man. It's a hot day here in Southern California. We're going to turn up the heat a little bit, and we're going to talk about everything that's got to do with your songwriting career and what's in store. So, let's start off the show and let's tell everybody where they can find you. What's going on in your life in the world of Crean right now as we speak?
I got a lot happening, besides playing, like you said earlier with Vinny and Carmine, Appice, however you want to say it, Appice.
Right.
We just put out an album called Sinister, Appice, or AIPPICE, Sinister, and it's doing really well. We've been touring with that, with that release, and this album's selling really well overseas. So we got that happening. I'm in the process of making a new record with a lot of big name guys. Vinny and Carmine are going to be on it. I got Mike Tramp going to be on it from White Lion.
Yes.
Yeah, he was on my last album as well. A very good friend of mine. Frank Domino, Rick Fox from Steeler, and Wasp. I got this great guitar player out of France called Steph Hond. So me and him are putting all the songs together, and so it's Robbie Lochner from Great White. So it's just really exciting,
Hey, Jim, you're talking about all these great luminaries. I'm 58 years old, so I've been around the block and back, and so have you. And I want to ask you a question. I want you to be honest with me. I know the answer, but I want the listeners to understand and agree or disagree. Is rock and roll still alive?
It's funny. Yes, for sure. But it's funny that you say that. It's because the new wave of kids that are coming up, us as parents, we raise our kids the right way on good music. So it's coming back. It's a resurgence of all that, because about 10 years ago, it was pretty stale, musicians really weren't learning guitar solos. If anything, they were taking guitar solos out of the songs, and they were just making the songs real simplistic. I think it's back to where you're having a lot of guitar changes and solos and singers that can actually hit notes and things like that.
Right.
So that's all coming back, and I think it's great. I mean, last night I was fortunate enough to go see Steven Tyler do a solo thing here in my hometown, it was sold out, unbelievable. So here's a guy in his 70s doing it still at a high level. So I think it's still and will always be around.
And I asked that question because I firmly believe, and I agree with you 100%, 1,000%. With my relationship with my good buddies Todd Zuckerman and JY and Tommy Shaw, the group called Styx, and Journey, Darnell Panada, which I had the pleasure of interviewing, and got Nils Schoen coming up also. There's a reason why, Jim, these people are still selling out stadiums. Because, like I said before, as I said last year, in a year ago, April, on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and I said the people that you're looking at on stage are old as your parents, if not older. And the reason why they're still on stage is, forgive my French, but they're playing real fucking music, playing real fucking instruments, and they're doing it the way it should have been done and the way it was written. I don't want to get on a soapbox and say that the millennials, the younger set, they got to learn the word hook, they got to learn the word bridge, and so on and so forth. When I interviewed Al Di Meola, Al said, I use the word shredding, and you're going to get a kick out of this, Jim. Al said, what the fuck is shredding? Does that just mean playing fast, and so on and so forth? So I think, as I said to all the young interviews that I've conducted, it's not so much knowing where music's going, it's knowing where music came from. Do you agree with that?
Right. 100%. And that shredding always sounded like jerking off to me. I never really understood that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It just noise. It's got to be tasty. And so for someone like Al, he's the most tastiest around, right? So, I totally agree with you on that. The music, the whole resurgence of rock music, because now country rock's a big thing. But if you really dissect what's going on with that country rock, it's Southern rock. It's Skinner. It's all these bands that we've already heard. So without all that music from the past, especially the 70s, I really feel the 70s really forged rock music. I know the 60s was that psychedelic era, but the 70s really, I think the 70s really, you had to be a really good musician to be successful in the 70s, and a really good songwriter. And, like your Todd Rundgren's, Aerosmith, bands like that, you really had to have the sense of how to write a song structure, because a lot of people can write songs, but you really need a song structure to make it be a classic song.
Now, as a vocalist, as a lead vocalist, as you are, when you're going in and stepping in the studio itself, what is your writing process? Do you want to share with us and the listeners, what is it that you do? Are you producing and writing the music first? Are the words first? Walk us through that process.
Well, it all depends. I mean, a couple songs, my better songs actually were written on an airplane, while I'm on tour, right? Oh. So I'm in the plane, and in my head, I'm kind of writing all the guitar parts, the bass lines, and everything I want to do. And then when I got home, I dissected it and put it to music, got on the guitar and did that. And then all of a sudden I decided to come up with a melody. So it all varies. I mean, it really does. Sometimes I come up with complete melody and vocal, and I don't even have music behind it. And then I structure around that. So I think any, strong songwriter, that's kind of how they do it. I don't know too many guys who have written great songs that can just pick up a guitar and say, okay, I'm going to write a great song. It just doesn't happen that way. It never happens. You have to be inspired by something. And I think that melody and things just come to you,
And Jim, let me ask you this question. If and when you are hit with writer's block, how do you approach that? Do you put the pen down? Do you walk away? Do you get yourself frustrated? How do you overcome that? And have you?
Yeah, I mean, every songwriter has come to that. But I think once I get to that level of a song and I'm stumped on a bridge or whatever, or even just a melody, I walk away from it and I just let it breathe. And then I say, I'm not going to go back to it until I really feel that I'm ready for it. I'm not just going to go back to it and put something half-assed or half-hearted to it,
right.
and then listen to it back, and then go record it that way, and then listen to it back and go, man, this sucks. Which a lot of guys and I've done that, made a mistake in the past where I listen to an album or whatever that I've done, and I go, shit, I wish I would have did that instead. I don't want regrets when I do a song. I really want it to be exactly the way I want it to be. So when I listen to it in 10 years, I say, yeah, that would have changed the thing. Now that's easier said than done because most musicians grow as an artist, and then you listen to previous catalog materials and you go, oh shit, that was horrible.
Right.
But some of it stands the test of time, you know.
Let me ask you this question. I interviewed earlier this year Richie Kotzen, and Richie and I sat down and we talked about, you know, his writing process, his thought process, him moving into a new house. So he hadn't built his studio in the house yet. And I asked him, as we're getting older and as our memory starts to slip a little bit, maybe it's still even gotten better. But when there's a song that runs through your head in the middle of the night while you're laying down, can you fall back to sleep and pick up where you left off when you wake up in the morning? Or are you a slave to the pen and paper that you have to write it down at that time that you're hearing it?
I'm bad like that. I really got to get on it, because if I don't, I've lost so many, in my mind, at least in my mind, great songs that I probably had before I went to sleep or whatever, and woke up with it lost. So yeah, I'm pretty bad like that. I'm fortunate enough to have my own, you know, professional home studio at my house where I can literally, if it's 2 a.m, get up and just run down there and lay the vocal down real quick, and just so I have a scratch idea. And I've done that. I've written a lot of songs that way, where I've had to literally, you know, run downstairs and get in the studio and fire it all up, and just to put down like a 3-chord progression, just so I remember it, you know?
You know, and that's the good thing you brought the word scratch you just used. I like that word, because me as a percussionist, when I'm in the studio and it's a song that's got background vocals, got lead vocals, and so on, I always request, not because I'm a diva, but I want to know a scratch vocal. I want to know what not to step on. Now, stepping in your shoes, being a lead vocalist, what scratch instruments are you putting down? Or when you are actually laying down the vocals, you're playing to a fully produced group of musicians or instruments?
Sometimes, like the new album that we're doing right now, me and Steph, we demoed everything out, which it was a really cool way to do it. My last album before that, everything was mastered, and then I did my vocals over it. This time we did demos to it, which was a really smart idea. And then I was able to really breathe with the song and say, oh, let's change that, let's do that, let's do this, let's take that part, put it over here. So I think the songs are a little bit more complete this time. And then I do a scratch vocal to it, and basically a full demo. And then we just went back and we just got all the players. So I have a lot of guest players going to be on this new record. Some really great artists, big name guys. So, you know, in this day and age, we can give them the files and they can just play the drums down or guitar down from all across the world, right? And this time we demoed it out, and then that's how we're doing it. And I like the way this process, but it's really starting to come together now. Everybody's starting to get me the files back right away, and it's really turning into something pretty special. I'm pretty proud of this new record coming out.
Hey, Jim, and let me ask you this question. You talked about earlier, you said that you saw Steven Tyler in your hometown. Where is your hometown?
I'm in Buffalo, New York.
Okay, so you're upstate boy.
I'm a New Yorker.
Okay,
yep,
so let me ask you this question then, based upon that. Growing up in the Crean household, as a young toddler that you were, let's go all the way back right now. When you were listening to music, the music that was coming through the speakers of the Crean household, the music that you liked growing up, what was it, who was it, and what song was it that you heard for the first time and you went, I really like this music, and or I really want to make music like this? Who was the artist? What was the song? And what year was that?
Very cool question. Very cool question. Growing up in the Crean household, my dad was a drummer, and he was in a pretty popular local band here in Buffalo. So they used to practice at my house. So these guys were all cool-looking 70s guys. You know, they'd come down in the basement, and the singer was real cool. He had the long hair, and he looked cool, you know. Always had a young chick with him, and it was cool, you know. And as little kids, we're looking at this stuff going, wow, look at this. Dad would go down there. Dad was a drummer. So he'd go down there and rock with these guys. Me and my brother would sit on the steps and just watch him practice. And it was kind of cool. And I always thought, that's kind of cool. But I didn't really understand what – I'm talking little. I'm talking like 7, 8 years old.
Okay, that's impressionable, though. That's impressionable.
Yep, I didn't really understand. I just figured, this is what Dad does. I don't know,
Okay.
And I didn't think much more of it. 'Cause I was really into sports as a kid. Me and my brother played hockey, football, organized football and hockey. So we were really into that. And so for my communion, I decided to get a guitar, which was just how cool my parents were. There used to be a place called Brand Names, and they had a catalog. You'd buy it out of a catalog, right?
Of course, of course.
Most kids were, you remember Brand Names. So most kids were getting toys or whatever for their communion or
right.
I got a guitar, and this is 9 years old. So I bought a guitar and didn't know how to play it or anything, but I just bought the guitar and I'd always mess around with it. And then the music always played in my house was stuff like the Beatles and bands like that, the Wings, things like that. But I didn't really get influenced by that yet. And then when I first heard, the defining moment, was when I heard Dream On, by Aerosmith. I just went, wow, this really moved me. And then there was a local band here in town called Talus, and it turned out to be Billy Sheehan, from Mr. Big and David Lee Roth,
absolutely,
his band. And I went to go see them at a real young age, and they just floored me. I was just like, this is amazing. You can do this live. This is what it's like playing live. And that was my defining moment. And I just said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I'm fortunate enough to get to know, got to know the guys in Talus very well. As a matter of fact, Dave Constantino is on my record, my last record. Phil Naro was in Talus. He's on my last record. He produced all my records, actually. So it really worked out well. But that was my defining moment right there, I would have to say.
And I appreciate that answer because I'm also smiling because you just word the word. And for the listeners out there worldwide, Jim just used the word communion. Now, for those who don't know, that is a classic Catholic background. Catechism, which I'll never understand for the life of me what that meant. And for a person myself who was a former altar boy and, and communion and confirmation and so on and so forth, yes, I made it through Catholic school without being touched. I'm not going to get into a political platform on that. But the fact of the matter is I want to qualify because people are texting me communion. And so the fact is, they said, how do you make communion more excitable and more understandable? You say body of Christ with or without nuts. And that's as far as I'm going to go. So on that, and we laugh about that because the fact of the matter is growing up in a Catholic household, and when you said your dad being downstairs in the basement playing rock and roll music, are we talking about rock and roll music? Because if you're talking about the 70s, then we're slaves to more of the James Taylor, the Jackson Brown, the Eagles, and so on. What was Dad playing? What was Dad's flavor?
All that, man. It was cool. They played CCR. They played the Yardbirds. They played the Doors. They were great. They played the Wings. Wings was real popular at that time. We're talking like 75, 77. Of course. They played all the cool, all the great, the best music, of the 70s. They played all those bands, Aerosmith. They did it all, and it was, and that stuff just really stays with me to this day. I mean, that's my style. It's my influence. I mean, I'm more stylistic. I would think more like 80s music,
right?
80s rock, hair music. It seems to gravitate towards that. But the 70s really opened it up. So that's the kind of stuff that was in my household as a young kid. But then I grew with it and started getting into Ronnie James Dio and just things like that. And it just really, opened up.
The reason why I asked that question, if you get a chance, I want you to go to Netflix. If you don't have Netflix, I want you to get a hold of a great rockumentary by the name of The Hired Gun. And it's produced by my good friend, Fran Strine. And it's all, if you haven't seen it already, I recommend everybody to see this. It was nominated for an Academy Award. It's absolutely amazing. It talks about you and I, the hired guns, what it takes out there. And I had a great interview with Rudy Sarzo, one of the greatest rock bass players that's out there. And just the anecdotes that he shared with me. Oh, did he really?
Oh, he's going to be on a new record, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the greatest.
Yeah, a lot of my buddies are in that movie. A lot of my friends are in that movie.
I love it. So good you saw it. Did you agree with it? I loved it. I'm a little bit of a delay here, so I don't know if it's your headset or your phone or whatever. But the bottom line is, I I love that movie because it shows exactly what it took, what it takes, and what it'll forever be to keep you in that situation. So now with that said, when someone is in a relationship with Jim Crean, in music relationship, obviously the talent brought them to your band. What keeps them there, Jim? What is it? Are you easy to work with? Are you an easy brother? Can you be an asshole? Are you a tyrant, for the lack of a better word? Tell me what you're like in the studio and on the road.
On the road, I tour with, when I'm on the road, I tour with Vinny and Carmine, and it's their project, it's their band. So, I know my boundaries. I know where my place, and my place is just to give them a great show every night. And those guys are so easy to work with, and they're adamant professionals, and they're family. So they're like my brothers. I feel like they're my brothers. That's how close we are. My fiance Colleen goes out on the road with us, and they treat her the same way. They're just great people. They stay at my house when they're in town, the whole 9 yards. So that touring band is a very easy touring band because it's, I know exactly my role in it, so it's easy for me just to focus on what I do and do it the best I can do. I'm in a band called Hair Nation, which I've had together for 18 years. So, and we've won a bunch of music awards, all that kind of stuff. And I'm the leader of that band. So it depends on who you talk to, but I can be tough, because I'm a professional, so I want to make sure that at all times the band's very organized and very professional. But in the same aspect, we have a lot of fun with it. So it's a tough, there's a fine line. You have to be, if you're a leader, you have to be a leader. You can't just do things half-assed. If you do it half-assed, then everybody gets that half-assed attitude. And I see bands like Guns N' Roses and bands like that are back, thank God. And everybody, and Axl always got this reputation, like what an asshole he was. No, they were all strung out on heroin, and they were all fucked up, and you needed one guy to keep it together. And Axl turned out to be that guy. So call him what you want, an asshole or not. The guy, he kept going on with it.
Absolutely.
So I look at it like, you need one guy that's going to really keep it together. You really do. And sometimes it's an unfortunate thing if the band, some guys just fall to the wayside because they just can't fall into it.
And Jimmy, let me ask you a question.
So hopefully that answered that right.
No, it did. And I want to ask you another question. Along that, you said the word struggle, be it drugs or attitude, ego, whatever. But, share with me, share with the listeners, what was your main struggle or struggles that you had to overcome before achieving your level of fame? Like, what new struggles did you find yourself, once you achieved that success, that you still had to overcome?
Just the whole playing the circuit of the bar circuit is just such a grueling thing. It's just, sometimes you'll be playing, even now I still experience it, with my cover band and stuff. You get to play theaters and arenas, and when you're doing that type of show, especially with, Carmine and Vinny and that, you're playing the theater and they're known. So it's you get built-in crowd, and they're respected, and they're not having to prove themselves. They're proven. So the whole thing is, it's easier for me just to relax and just have a good time and enjoy it and play at that high level, because that's where they're at. And then the reality kicks in, and you're back to playing clubs again. So I'm always having to overcome that. I wish someday I wouldn't have to overcome that, but I think that's part of the business now. I don't think it's ever. I mean, bands that were very successful, 20 years ago, are back playing bars. So I think that's the main struggle. I never got into drugs. I'm not a big guy into drugs. I don't like that at all. Drinking, all that stuff. So I never had that problem, thank God. It's always been just the struggle of having to keep yourself grounded and keep yourself very, very humble. Because the more success you get.
Oh, sure you do. We're in a business that, Jim, is that people have got their noses so far up our asses that when you get home, and for your case, your fiance, for my case, my wife of 35 years, they are the grounders. They don't give a shit. I mean, I say this in open-ended. Of course they give a shit. They're amazed by our talent. They respect our talent. But the bottom line is, we are hey you when we get home. We don't, take out the trash, clean up the dog poop. Hey, there's extra dishes, in the dishwasher, and so on and so forth. So that's what keeps me grounded. But I want to ask you this question. You mentioned a little while ago about the business in hand and so on and so forth. Now, in that crystal ball that is in front of you right now, I want you to wave your hand over it. I want you to think, because I'm always curious, especially for a front guy. One of my very close friends over the years is a guy by the name of David Lee Roth, Diamond Dave. And Dave and I go back years. Am I name dropping? Absolutely. The guy is still probably one of the best frontmen that's ever been out there to this day, even though he looks like a creepy grandfather at this point. But I say that with tongue in cheek. But if you could look back out of all of the rock and roll hits, all the stuff that you loved, when you're driving, when you're sleeping, when you're flying, is there one song that you said, God damn it, I wish I was singing that song? What song is that, and why is that the song that's on the top of your mind that you wish you sung on?
So many great songs. But yeah, to go back to David Lee Roth, you never take it away from him. Like you said, he was one of the coolest frontmen ever.
Absolutely.
No one can deny him that. No one can deny him that. I hear people say, and he is creepy, like you said, looking now, he looks like a weirdo. But I tell you what, go back to 83 US Festival, and there's your answer. But okay,
nobody can touch him.
Back to the song thing. God, there's so many great songs, but probably Dream On. I mean, to me, it just resonates everything that a great song is. It's got emotion, it's got power, it's just a great word song. Probably that song.
When you hear Dream On, like even recently with Steven, because he's in full voice, have you had the opportunity to hear Steve talk about the reason for Dream On and what his inspirations were? And do you agree with his inspirations, even though you didn't walk in his shoes? I think we all have lived that scenario. What is it about that song that just really takes you back?
I think it's just a message, that, what he was trying to say there is basically, your dreams can come true, but don't get disappointed if it's not the exact dream that you're looking for. And that's really what the song's about. It's, whatever you shoot for the stars, but if the stars don't come falling in your lap, whatever you get,
you dig it.
Embrace it. And that's really what the song's about. And that's how life is, man. And for a young kid at his age to write such a deep song, I always thought that was kind of scholar-like,
Have you covered that tune?
So, but that's, we do that. Yeah, for sure.
Now, do you have to grab yourself in the crotch to reach those high ends, or what is your octave range when you're singing, or do you bring it down a notch?
That's my range. I mean, I'm a high singer, and that's what kind of was rough in the 90s, because I'm over here hitting all these crazy notes in the 90s, and most guys in the 90s were singing, they were everybody dropped down D, and I couldn't.
Right.
I just couldn't understand it. I was like, well, why wouldn't you want to sing in standard tuning 440 if you can? And I'm like, well, because it's cooler, lower like this. And then I see some of these 80s bands now that are coming out, and the singers are all dropping down to D, and it's like, that doesn't even sound like the same song anymore.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well, because I can't hit the notes, but I get that. But maybe just change the melody a little bit. Don't change the whole song. So yeah, to answer that question, I'm a 440 guy all the way.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you another question. Forgive me for, making thought-provoking questions, but this is what I do. And I want to find out about you because, again, you're not a kid. So with that said, if Jim Crean was coming up with the music business as it stands today, would you think, and be honest with yourself, would you think it'd be harder to break through, or would it be easier to break through? And how would your strategy be different?
Well, my strategy would be like this. I'd be going to medical school and becoming a doctor, and there would be no Jim Crean coming up in this day and age. I just don't know if it's so hard nowadays just to break anything. I mean, you can sell, 10,000 units and it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean?
It doesn't. Of course.
The music business is so changed from even, I've seen a lot of decades of this. This is my third decade in the business. Almost my fourth. Yeah. I'm sorry. Almost my fourth. So,
it's trippy. I'm going to jump in right now.
So many times.
When you say that and jumping back and forth, and forgive me for stepping on you here, we're talking about being older and have the music business is not changing yearly; it's changing daily. Al Di Meola and Stanley Clark were in Germany, and they were talking, and they said, and I quote Al, "At our age, we shouldn't have to play music; we should want to play music." Do you agree with that situation? Do you find it harder to monetize your talents? And if you do find it harder, or if you find it easier, how are you overcoming people stealing music and people not owning their own sound, and et cetera? Explain to the younger listeners out there what it is they can do to protect themselves.
Well, I just reiterate my comment I was saying. I was only kidding when I said be a doctor.
Of course.
You either have the passion, you don't. And so I would have, of course, been coming through because that's just who I am. Even last night we were talking about it. We were walking back to the car and we had to go through because we had the VIP thing, the whole treatment, all that cool shit. But to get out, you had to walk through the crowd and everything. And I said my agent who was with me, and ironically enough, I go, thank God I'm in a band because I don't know what else I would do with myself. You know what I mean? I couldn't. But
that's so cool because, my wife, she came up with this great question. We always sit down and we talk about, because unfortunately, I'm not going to enjoy my interview with Jim Crean until I get a chance to hear it back, because I got so many questions I have and so many, barriers that I have to go around. But I want to ask this question. I ask this to everyone, being a side man or being an Ann Wilson from Heart. But if the word music wasn't in your vernacular, was never in your vocabulary at all, what would Jim be doing today? And be honest with me. What would it be?
I don't know. It's a tough question. I mean, that's a really crazy question. It's back to the crystal ball thing. I probably would have, maybe been a police officer. I don't know. My brother was a police officer for 20 years, and he had a very successful career. So I probably went that path, which is a great path. I like being around people, so I probably would have did something like that, in all honesty. I would have probably pursued my sports a little bit harder, too, because I was really into sports.
Right.
So I don't know. But
it's trippy.
It took a hold of me at a young age.
Yeah, I look at that question, and I can't wait to ask that question to my multitude of interviews, and because the cross-section of answers that came back, I quote, case in point, Ray Parker Jr., Ghostbusters. He said he'd either be working on the assembly line at Ford in Detroit or he'd be dead. And, that is, that's really a strange dichotomy, because the bottom line, I'm growing up in the inner city. I don't care if it's growing up in, upstate New York. Everybody is surrounded by shit, by temptation, drugs, crime. Just when you find out that making $3 an hour at McDonald's is not going to cut it, but you can make it much more money by selling drugs. And the fact of the matter is nobody gets into the music business to starve. Growing up, we got in the music business because it was the easiest way to pick up on girls. And the fact of the matter is that you being a front man, and I'm going to say this, and I mean this tongue-in-cheek, you guys are all touched. And God knows I work with plenty of frontmen, and we talked about David Lee Roth. What is it about a lead singer that makes you guys a little bit, no, let me rephrase that, a lot different than most musicians on stage?
Well, because we're a good front man's going to command the audience, and
right.
You get them to give the band the chance. Most people in the audience are listening with their eyes, so they're not listening with their ears; they're listening with their eyes at a
Absolutely.
concert. Until this day and age, where everybody's got the cell phones, now they just watch the concert through the cell phone. But coming up, they listen with their eyes. So visually, you had to be stimulating, right? So that turns into the focus of what's going on. So back to the question you said, most guys, people get into them for the girls and stuff. I never thought like that because I never really, that just came natural. The girls thing was a natural thing,
right, absolutely.
That just
absolutely.
That would just happen. Whether I was in a band or not, you just, that's just what you do.
Sure.
So the band thing, I never got into it for that. If anything, I was so focus driven on just being a good singer and being a good front man to do exactly what you said, command the stage. And so that a way of thinking that David Lee Roth, I'm sure Dave would tell you the same story. I can't picture David Lee Roth joining a band to pick up chicks because Dave could be a plumber. Back then, he would have picked up chicks. So I don't
Absolutely.
think that never fell into his world either, in guys like that. But so the whole music, I think it's something that drives you. It's an inner feeling being in a band and but taking it at the next level, and that's just it's indescribable because I really don't know what it is, but it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. And I wanted to make sense to the people out there that are not musicians. I mean, you're going to be great at everything you do as long as the word passion is involved. And that stems from what started you out in this industry and what's keeping you in the industry. And with that said, the fact that we are longer in the tooth, if you will, Jim, how has today's technology changed what you do?
It makes it a lot easier to be able to record like I'm doing with these records. Back in the day when we did records, even when I did my first record, we had to book the studio time and it was expensive, and you had to get all the musicians together and A, work on the songs, B, write the songs, C, record the songs. It was very expensive to make a record. Not that it's not expensive now to make a record, because it's actually more expensive now, but it's more at your fingertips. It's a lot easier to kind of to do it now. So technology really helped that way. I think there's better recording equipment than back in the day, of course.
Sure.
Some would beg to differ because I like the analog stuff too. But I just think the whole that aspect's great compared to even the live production is so much better between the in-ear monitors and the microphones and the PAs. That's so much better than in the 70s and the 80s. But I think the live thing, if you do it right, it will always stand the test of time.
All right, you just opened up a can of worms to sound. You just said something that the younger set doesn't understand. You use the word inner monitors, which you have to drag me screaming and crying to put those in my ears. I've been around too long. I've been around the question. I love the sound of the ambient wedge. Do you agree with me on that?
100%. I don't use inner monitors. I tried them. I hated it. I was too isolated. I was so disconnected from the crowd. I like the wedges on the side. I like a loud PA, loud monitors. Just go for it. And I think you push yourself a little harder too. I think singers get real lazy with these in-ear monitors. I just use that for example because it's technology. I don't use them. I tried them. I hated it. So I just basically keeps you honest too. It really does. Keeps you more honest.
It's funny that you said that because I asked Michael McDonald, gentleman I've worked for years. I said, Mike, what don't you want to hear in your mix? And I love his response. His response to me was the wrong note. So with that said, you having your mix in front of you, what don't you want to hear in your mix? What irritates you?
Nothing really irritates me. I mean, I when I do a live mix like that, I just usually have guitar and my vocal in there. That's it.
Okay.
And that's really the key off of the guitar. Just because it helps me find the notes better. It makes me stay in tune and key better. With a good guitar player, you can really, I think, get a really good vibe and it can really get emotional when you sing. And that's really what I take in my monitors.
And Jim, let me ask you this question. You're celebrating 40 years, 4 decades in this industry. That's myself also.
Yeah.
Are you involved in any kind of music educational, initiatives at all?
I do a lot of programs here in my hometown, to help kids coming up. And, my band, we play a lot of shows. We do a lot of charity stuff. So, yeah, we're my city of Buffalo I live in, man. We have the best musicians. I'm telling you, I've been everywhere in the United States. We played tons of cities. And it's just great musicians. I played with some major big name guys. And I will tell you, my hometown of Buffalo is so underrated when it comes to musicians. When we go to you're from California, so when I go to California, the first couple times we played there many years ago, I was like thinking I'm going to be real intimidated. Like, oh man, all these other bands they're going to be great. They live in California. They're great. And then I get out there with my Buffalo crew and go, what?
Yeah.
If we moved out there, oh my God, what would happen? We'd be David Lee Roth. We'd be in Van Halen, So there's so many great musicians in my hometown, and there's such a great music scene here in Buffalo that is honestly, it's like a pimple on an ass. You will never know it. You'll never know it. It's not like Nashville or California or Vegas. just because it's a small city.
Jim, I don't know if you have a pen and paper in front of you or just a good memory, but I want you to remember this website I'm going to give you. It's called Jambox, JAMBOXX.com. What is Jambox? Well, actually, it's a Troy, New York corporation. It's an American company. Jambox was invented years ago by Dave Whalen, a great musician that became a quadriplegic after a bad surfing accident. It sidelined his musical career. So instead of feeling sorry for himself, over the past 7 years, him, his partner Mike, and Dwight have come up with this amazing MIDI handheld wind instrument. Go to jambox.com and you'll find out, well, what happens when you can't use your hands? Well, there's a stand. And all of a sudden now, for people that I ask that question, when you're out there in the audience and people are looking, I'm sure you've seen the musicians that are in wheelchairs, people that can't play because of accidents, because of any disease. Myself, I have MS. I've had MS for 21 years, 22 years. There's days that I don't feel like playing because my right side is fatigued. Now, when Jambox came to me and asked me if I would be the worldwide ambassador, but the fact of the matter is I do come with a great bio, but I also have MS, and I'm very much in tune with the ADA, the MS Society, and everybody else out there. Do yourself a favor, Jim. Study Jambox, and also get a box of Kleenex also, because what life has taken away from you in the way of the utilization of your hands and so on, you can play everything with your mouth. There's people on the Jambox website that are on ventilators that are still living their dream, their last minute on earth, playing music. I'm getting choked up thinking about it, man, because it's amazing.
Sure.
And when you get a chance to go out there and people are looking to this older guy in a rock band, and you're seeing that person that's in a wheelchair, help them out, man. Help them, he or she, out, and let them know that it's our duty as the old guys to educate and continue to educate people out there on the marketplace. And that's as far as I'm going to go. But definitely check out jambox.com. It's a different way of life, man. It's a revolutionary instrument that's only going to add to as we get older also. And so check it out. Sure. So with that said, let me ask you this question, brother. Where were you? What was it? What was the song? The first time Jim Crean ever heard himself on the radio, what was your feeling? What were you doing? Did you cry like I did?
It was cool. It was a good moment because I was in a band, and this was when I was at a young age too. I was driving with my buddies, and this is back, this is probably like 84, 85 maybe.
Right.
So, I'm dating myself again. But, that was when like radio used to play a lot of unsigned, unknown bands. They didn't have it where now it's just, it's a playlist. So I was driving, and I was with my buddies. I ran perfect timing, and a song called "Love on the Rock," which used to play a lot on the radio, came on, and my buddies were just looking at me like, "Holy shit, that's you on the radio, man!" And at the time you thought, well, this is just a start. You know what I mean?
Right, of course.
As a young kid, as a young hungry kid, that's how you have to think. If you don't think like that, then why even do it? So I was just thinking, okay, this is a stepping stone. Just I'm gonna have so much better music. You know what I mean? So that was a great feeling. And back then you couldn't record it and stuff like that. So
sure.
It just came and went. And you're sitting there the whole time listening to it, almost mimicking the words because you know the words. And it's like, it was such a cool feeling. And, and in the 90s, we did a video. I'll tell you a quick story. We did a video that aired on MTV a bunch of times, and it went into a contest. And the two final videos would get a 1 or 2 year contract to A&M Records. At the time, it was Gold Mountain Records, and if you remember those, and it came down to the wire. It was my video versus Fuel. So this is 93, and obviously we both know the outcome of that one. So the winning prize was they get to go on a 3-month tour with Aerosmith. So we were on MTV, and at the time the VJ was Kelly Ripa before
really?
She was on Region. Yeah, he was a VJ, and there we are. I have all my buddies at the house, and we're watching my video, and at that time I'm thinking, we got a shoe in, man. We beat out like 25 videos, and we're in the final. And then they played Fuel, and then they played my video, and we were like, oh, we got this. And the winning band was, Kelly Ripa was the one that actually had to deliver the bad news. And the winning band is Fuel. We were like, oh, man. But it makes
Jim,
sense because Fuel...
I'm going to stop you right there because we're running out of time and it pisses me off. I want everybody to go to Jim Crean, that's JIMCREAN.net, to find out everything about this amazing musician. Jim, I'm glad we finally got it together. You finally made it onto the show, and I thank you immensely, brother. I hate to cut you off, but everybody, please patronize. Don't steal Jim's music. Go out and buy it. He's not doing it for his health. Guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Media. Connect to all things music. As I always say, Jim, to every one of my interviews, peace through music, brother. Keep it live and keep it going strong. Much love.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.